What's going on, everybody? Thank you for listening to the show. My guest today is an incredibly talented bass player, composer, music producer, music director, a good friend of mine and someone that I've had the pleasure of working with for many years, Artha Meadors. And it was badass because this conversation happened to coincide right around the time that he was getting ready for his band, Citizens of Tape City, to re-release their debut EP titled She Like Me. Now, Artie's also fixing her, by now I do believe he is in Texas, to make his way to Texas and get a little reset. So we certainly talk about that quite a bit in the conversation. And it was great getting to pick his brain about his writing process, what he thinks about when he tries to take an idea into a song. And I love it. I look forward to many more conversations with this man. This guy's inspiring to me, and I look forward to having him on my next album, which will be soon to be discussed. But for now, I felt it adequate for us to start with one of the songs, and why not the title track from that EP. So without further ado, presenting my Bubble Bath record label mates, this is Citizens of Tape City playing She Like Me.
When you call me by my name, it's just something that sounds so different, place, sensation. But you're not the same as them others, you're around the way. Not in the tens, you're a hundreds, just the way you make me wanna baby. Walk in your front, you do it all because you know you make me want you crazy. But you didn't recognize us, saw you yesterday. Now we just smoking on them rocks. Do I think I'm about to stop? Could they chase you on with chalk? Would they put me down a lock? I don't know what you done did. I'm at my limit and I'm about to miss running in the put to get Mrs. Hard to get, but she won't admit she likes me, yes she like me. And I wanna get some somewhere. I know she like me, she like me. Oh yeah, my life's on check.
Mr. Artha Meadors is in the house. What's up, Artha?
Yo.
Thank you for being on the show, my man. It's good to have you back because I wanted to have you on for the first podcast, and then it ended up being a trio podcast, and we had a good time talking shit with Mr. Ryan Montano.
Hey, Montano.
Yeah, bro.
Mr. Mantanios.
Mr. Montano. Mr. Montano. You got to make sure you're speaking of that make boo.
Check.
Get all those little, squiggly lines going, But things are kind of changing up for you, my man. It's been a trip talking to you over the years and seeing your evolution from not really wanting to tour and think about getting on the road to now just kind of, needing that and getting out and thinking about, like that reset that is getting out.
It wasn't I was against touring because I've done touring before and stuff like that. It was just at that point in my life I was just like, I just rather just stay here and develop things here. And as I was developing things here, I was like, okay, well, I kind of reached a point here. I've kind of reached kind of a level here. So then it's like, it kind of felt I felt my playing, and I kind of felt my creativity getting kind of stagnant, and I kind of feel like I, for better or worse, need kind of an ass kicking.
And often that comes from like leaving, right?
It comes from being in uncomfortable situations, and
Yeah.
it feels like I've been here so long that I've gotten kind of comfortable to a lot. Oh, well, not every, but a lot of situations here.
I mean, you know, I think Mo Roberts and I have this conversation a lot. It's like you can hit the ceiling of, not to say like of all the opportunities, of all of the gigs that you can play in town, but I mean, you can make the circles, you can make the rounds pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
getting out definitely affords you the opportunity to just like totally hit reset, man. Yeah, take a little pause for just a second. All right, and we're back. Leaving definitely like affords you the opportunity to push that reset and just kind of get a fresh perspective of people who play your instrument.
Yeah.
And I love that, man.
Yeah, it's definitely that. It's also just, once again, just really just trying to be uncomfortable and get outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Test my ability somewhere else.
So, when did production come into like the picture for you? I mean, I know that you've kind of always messed around on a bunch of different instruments and stuff like that, but was writing music always an experience of mixing an idea with different instruments, like, you know?
So when I first started playing, I started off on bass, and then shortly after I went to drums. Then I went back to bass.
What age?
I was 14.
When you started playing bass?
When I first started playing bass, and then
late bloomer, bro.
Yeah, straight up. And then I went to drums, and I actually have more formal lessons on drums over 22 years than on bass. Oh, yeah. But I refuse to play drums in public now. So that's the funny part. But I went back to bass, and so then what I would end up doing is I have a bass, I would have a guitar. I would have a bass, and I would have a drum set, and so I'd be like, okay. I would come up with a part, and I would record it on like a tape deck, and then I would be like, okay, well, how do I layer this? I'm like, okay, well, the first thing I got to do is the drums because they're the loudest. Then I would go back, I would play my bass and record to the drums. Then I would lay my bass down. So I would lay this whole song down. I'm like, oh, I got to write this song, make a song with this if I'm going to do it. Mm. So that was kind of like the first idea of me like getting into like production of just like, yo, this is how things are supposed to fit together. And I feel like that was like a lot of good exercises in arranging too, and kind of like being a musical director.
From early on, from when you started, yeah.
Yeah, it was very much like, yo, if the snare is hitting too loud here, you're not going to hear the bass in this fashion or whatever. So then from there, I just got into the idea of just sampling and stuff like that. And so even in early bands, I would use samples in bands. I would use really out there bass tones. And I'm like, okay, well, how can I bend sound even more? So it just always turned into that. Then I really just got into Ableton like around my mid-20s. Like, once again, late bloomer.
So what was it like playing with other musicians at that point in your life? Were you playing in church at that age? Already playing in bands? What?
I started playing at 14. I started playing professionally probably about 16.
Okay.
And by definition of professional, I was getting paid.
Paid?
Yeah. I was getting paid. I'm like, hey, I could pay my cell phone bill. I got this month, Mom. Next month, though.
I might need your help, Mom.
But this month?
Call my girlfriend from Canada, so I need your help, Mom.
And so, yeah.
But what were those gigs? I mean, like in the church and getting paid for that, or like in a band and getting paid for that?
Church, R&B groups. I had my band. Wow, we're taking this back to like high school.
Yeah, bro. What was that band?
Lifter.
Was this like around the time that you always told me about you and Logan were playing in kind of opposing different bands, or was that later on?
It's a little bit later on.
Yeah. Right.
So Lifter turned into Falling Process. And when I was in Falling Process, Logan was in Rupert's Lane. I always forget. But he was in Rupert's Lane, and so him and I used to always just kind of see each other on the gig and be like, oh, I look at him like it was obvious he was like the best musician in the building. So I'd be looking at him on drums. So I'm like, oh, I dare you to do this. Do it. Do it. And he'd do some crazy double bass thing. He see me playing slap bass. He's like, oh, I dare you. I'm like, okay, I'll do this. Watch this. Watch this. And I jump off an amp or something. But in those bands, there was around that time, probably 2001, 2001, there was like a lot of bands starting to get into the idea of using samples live and using tracks live, and it was becoming more normal. So I was like, oh, yo, we need to be ahead of the curve. We need to be on this. So I just started messing around with it on my own, and then it just turned into me just tracking stuff on my own.
So were you playing with Ableton in a live situation from then on, like that early on, or not yet?
Not yet. I didn't start using Ableton live. Oh, wow, that was double usage of live. And a live situation. Probably I started probably about 7 years back. 7 years back, really, of just like trying to put it into a situation and failing a lot and just realizing, hey, this is what you got to do. This is
right.
You have to set up things different live than you have to do for the studio. I've always tried to be like super experimental with things before. Like you learn, most people learn how to walk, and I'm the guy who's trying to learn how to do like a backflip first and be like, oh, wait.
I almost got it.
I got the backflip. Do you know how to walk? No, but I'll backflip to the store.
That's funny.
So I really try to go for like super experimental things right off the back, and then it was just a lot of like trial and error and failing. So, yeah.
So, from high school, I know you went to Albuquerque High School. I'm guessing you said that band that you were playing with then transformed into the next band, which was, what was it called
Falling
again?
Process.
So that was high school?
That was like right after high school.
And so, did you do just music after you graduated from high school? Did you go into university? What happened then?
In and out of community college with special education, becoming a special ed teacher.
Yeah.
But worked in music stores, worked in call centers.
Guitar boy?
Guitar boy.
Yeah.
That was like the least agonizing guitar store I've ever worked in. That was a lot of fun, a lot of good friends. Yeah. A lot of like staples in the Albuquerque music scene.
The community.
Yeah.
So when you were like out of high school, starting to perform and stuff, what was it like starting to go on the road? I mean, what kind of bands were you playing in? I mean, what was that scene like at that point?
It was like random funk. It was usually like a lot of funk things. But I did that. Did a couple rock bands, and we did a little bit of traveling. Let me see. Dang. Christian acts. It was kind of all across the board. And it was just kind of like a little bit different every other month. And then it went from that, and then it was just kind of like, I was like, I'd rather stay and do my own thing. And none of the things that I did on the road were actually, I won't say lucrative, but it wasn't the most high-paying thing on the planet. It was just like, you could do that, or you can just stay here and do the same thing, and you can go home and have a beer.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was pretty much like that's why I went through a very long time of like, yeah, I'll just stay here. You know.
So you had Neff, and you were married at that point in your life. And all right, so like the direction of like your life, I just wonder, like, at what point you started settling down to work into the APS and the special education situation that you were working in, because that was kind of what you were working in when I was first meeting and playing with you.
I wasn't playing a lot in different situations around town. It wasn't that lucrative.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be like working like crazy, but it wasn't a whole mess of things that I liked, you know?
Yeah. That's
So,
yeah.
so my whole thing was like, oh, if I get a day job, I can really just tell most people, like, screw you. Like, I don't want to play. Like, I don't want to take your gig. I'd rather play something I like. So having a day job, I don't think that's, a lot of musicians can see that as like, that's the end of, that's like, well, you're not a professional musician. You're not doing it full time. It's like, oh, well,
Yes.
then you're also playing that gig that I didn't want to play, that you don't want to play either.
Truly. Yeah.
So
truly.
would you rather work, would you rather work a day job, even if it's a menial day job? Would you rather work a day job and play music you like, or play a whole mess of music you don't like and pretty much X out your time for the music you actually want to play?
It's true. It's true. Yeah. You have to spend that time with your instrument, and as opposed to doing what you like to do, doing what you have to do to make those $100.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the same battle. The thing that a lot of people say who don't play music is, if they hear you're a full-time musician, the first thing they say, wow, you're doing what you love. It's like, yeah, playing Bruno Mars covers is not
entirely what we all have in mind.
Yeah, that's not exactly what I mean.
It's like the dark joke that Louis C.K. says when he's like on, I think it's on David Letterman or something. No, I think it's on Conan O'Brien, where he's just like, you know, like, let's be honest, man, like, you know, musicians and dancers, it's like, those are the most thankless jobs like ever. Like, you know, it's like, look at all those musicians up there on the stage. You know, it's like none of them are doing what they dreamt they wanted to be doing when they got into music, you know? Yeah. They all want to be solo stars. Like, they all want to do their own thing, you know? So, like, that idea of people saying, oh, you're a musician. Oh, man, you must be happy. You must be doing what you love. You must be living a wonderful life, you know? It's like, yeah, up to a point. Up to a point, it's wonderful and it's great. But at the same time, yeah, you gotta, like, every city that I've gone to and every great musician that I've come to meet, not every great musician I should say, but so many of the great musicians that I meet in different cities all have another job to make ends meet. If it means teaching, or if it just means they're hustling in town and then they're going on the road and playing, and that's its own full-time job and affords very little time to do anything else. So at the end of the day, when you decide to do a different day job that allows you to be creative and not need to take every single opportunity that comes down the pike, I mean, it sets up a whole new playing ground for what your limits are and what your relationship is with music and what your reason for playing music is for. I mean, like, a conversation I was having with someone in New Orleans was, it gets so skewed as to why you play music. You know, when you're when you're in that bar in New Orleans and you're playing those songs that people come to the city wanting to hear, you're whoring your instrument, your ability to play music, which could be for whatever. I mean, you know,
I see. I don't see it that way either. Because I did the trade-off of, I ended up working in a public school and kind of a very specific behavioral program. So, and it just kind of ended up, my brother was working in it, and I just ended up, he said, yo, try this out. And I ended up really, really liking it. It was, you know, it was a really cool, different thing. So between playing music I liked outside of that and going to work, I didn't really have a job. I liked both things I was doing.
Yep.
What people don't understand, and in that sense right there, is that music can be a job too.
Upon itself. Yeah.
Playing music you don't like, or that doesn't resonate with your soul, or the situation doesn't resonate with your soul, it's a job. I used to...
And it drains you in the same way that a job does when you're just like...
Absolutely, without a doubt, make it so bad. I think it drains you more, and I think it drains you faster. I was in a what's called a house band for a casino for about 3.5 years, and it was this weird gig where it was like, it was supposed to last 4 months, and I was like, it was like super embarrassing. The more I think about it, even when I was doing it, I was like, this is like knocking down my integrity just a little bit or a lot, whatever. And it was a good paying gig. It really was.
Was this with the Calculators?
Yeah, I was trying to keep the name out of it, but
I'm sorry. I'm
So we were the house band for Buffalo Thunder.
I wonder that because I need to ask because it was a band that you had such a relationship with that was so cool. Like it was. I mean, I don't know.
No, it wasn't.
I'm assuming before that, you know what I'm saying. The concept of the band was pretty tight.
No, it wasn't.
Never.
Okay. All right. Okay.
How was it? All right.
All right. Let's start from the beginning now. Thanks.
Getting in the mud. I'm sorry, bro. Getting you in trouble, bro.
So,
what's up, Mike?
I know. Mike, Chris, Lel, Dottie, what's up? Anyways. So for the listeners, we were the house band for Buffalo Thunder for like 3.5 years. Once again, it was supposed to be just 4 months. It was a band called the Calculators. It was really based off this this franchise band called Spasmatics. And basically it would be like we dressed up like Revenge of the Nerds, like, you know, suspenders, pocket protectors, thick frame glasses, and the whole deal. And we talked nerdy and we played nothing but 80s rock tunes. No black man should play that much Huey Lewis ever. Just being real about it. So, I mean, one of my absolute best friends to death, Mike Wood, was the guitar player. So that really did make, you know, it a little bit easier. The staff was super cool. The band manager, lead singer, Chris, was like super cool too. He was always on it. I mean, but it just was musically, and situational wise, it just wasn't what I envisioned, you know? And I don't like casinos. I didn't like a lot of the music we were playing. So it turned into, it turned pretty bad in the sense of like, I would just be driving up there. It was 80 miles away. So I always had an 1.5 hour drive after I got off of work.
Ouch.
And then, you know, run home, load up my stuff, drive an 1.5 hours up there and just be like mad. It just turned into me being mad. Like, I don't want to go play. I do not want to go play for these people. I don't want to go play a casino. I want to do anything else in the world right now. Anything else. Like, if you need a ditch dug right now, I got you.
Friday night, I'm there.
I know. Friday night, 11 o'clock, you need a ditch dug. I ain't even asking questions.
Let me park my car in front of that little hole.
I know.
Flash my brights. I got you.
I know. Don't even tell me what you put in there. Just
give me the shovel. Let's go.
Yeah. But it was a good paying gig. It just like I realized at that point through that time that me personally, I need to balance. And I always have to balance work with something original and me expressing myself musically. Mm-hmm. And if I can't balance those two, I get pretty ugly. It gets pretty ugly. I just bad mood all the time. And so that gig was like not fun. And towards the end, it ended up me and Mike splintered off and we started making this other band with all of our friends that we just would do random gigs with. And we, you know, it's called New Methods. And I was just like, yo, let's just go. This is fun. This is work. And if I never got to that point where I created those two things, those two situations, it would have got to a point where I would have been like, I'm done with music. I don't want to play. If this is what music is and this is how much I'm getting paid and this is it turns you into very, very financial based. And it's like, oh, if you started to play music or you want to play music professionally to, you know, be rich, it's like you picked the wrong field.
Yes. Yeah.
So even music within music, it could be just as much of a job. That was really the whole point of it all.
It's definitely a relationship that I think all musicians deal with, think about, or eventually face. I mean, if you go about seeking longevity and playing music. And that balance is always something that I struggle with as well. And it's a reason that initially I moved out of town, but, you know, I ended up coming back and doing some other stuff. But that desire to have a balance of doing music for the reasons that you wanted to be doing music. And I felt that I was not doing that towards the end of my studies in university here, like towards 2012 and 13, and moved away to try and do that. And then, you know, as things change, whenever you show up and actually see them as they are, you know, I ended up going somewhere else. And, you know, I mean, you come back to the place that you're from, and, you know, people find out, and those opportunities come up to work again in the situation where you're working for the dollar, you know, where you're not doing what you want to be doing. And you got to balance whether or not, first of all, you got enough money to turn down the gig. Second of all, you are able to do something else, or just have the liberty to creatively just say no. You know, it's a conversation I have with Joseph Scott a lot, you know, when he was initially getting those gigs and then was just like, I'm not doing those gigs anymore. You know, for him, it seemed to be almost more of a moral decision not to do them.
That's, I think him and I, and once again, for listeners who don't know, Joseph Scott and I are in a project called Citizens of Tape City.
COTC.
Yeah, corn on the cob.
Yeah. COTC, corn on the cob. I like it.
Anyways, but that's literally why we've kind of started the project. We started it off from these initial sparks of ideas, and us just kind of hanging out and being like, oh, okay, well, we might not necessarily like the same music, or we might not be on the same wavelength, but it's like it turned into a kind of like a I dare you art challenge.
Yep.
Like I would write something so off the wall, and he'd go, I'll write to it.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But
yeah,
that was kind of like what we did. We had literally out loud, we had a conversation, and we said, everything we do unapologetically. It will be us. Nobody else. Is just be like, hey, do we like it? We shut the door. We write the songs. Yep. And when we open the door, if people don't like the songs.
If you like it, if you don't, you know, fuck off. Yeah.
Oh, dude, we walking out with fingers up.
Yep.
And that was kind of like what we did. That's the kind of the way that we go about Citizens, and I think it works out fine, and it feels right, and it feels both of us and Chris Gatson, who's now added to the mix, we don't really consult outside until we're done. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Joseph had the same kind of, you know, I think he had the same epiphany that I did of like, yo, if I'm going to do this, it's like I have a day job. I know how to make money. Yep. I know how to pay my bills. Yep. If I can't make music my way, there's a problem. There's a huge problem. Mm-hmm. And it's even doing micro things, dude. Like one of the big things I do, and I've been doing this for a while, but I just started documenting it, I guess, is I wake up every morning and I make a beat. I'll work on an exercise, but whatever exercise I make, I'm working on, like it's a melodic minor or something like that. I'll try to come up with a song or a melody or something. Mm-hmm. But if you ever pay attention to my Instagram and my Instagram stories, like every other morning, a couple times a week, I'll document me starting from scratch, writing an entire song or writing a beat or something. And just going like, okay, cool. Well, it's time to go work on the music I got to learn to pay the bills. But taking that time for myself of going like, hey, this is the art. This is why I start to play music, is that I can express myself which way I want. Yep. And taking that small amount of time, it'll be something stupid like an hour or 15 minutes I give myself. And then that means the world to my productivity of playing everybody else's gig. Because if I just play everybody else's music, I'm giving myself out every other place. And then I get home and I'm like, what do I got? What did I work on? Where was I in all of this? Mm-hmm. And that stuff can get to you real quick.
It does. It wears on you.
Yep.
So, Citizens of Tape City, we're both Bubble Bath label mates and stuff. And tell me a little bit about, for a second, what's the status of the EP or the album? I believe that's going to come out maybe next year sometime. You guys are thinking, is that right? This spring sometime?
So we're re-releasing our first EP, the She Like Me EP, on November 11th through Bubble Bath.
On November 11th or? Mm-hmm. Nice. Of 2019?
Of 2018.
So you already released. Oh, wait, so it's coming up. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
November 18th.
Yeah, we're re-releasing it 11th.
All right, November 11th. All right, so we're going to put this podcast out before that so we can help promote that, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. So
tell me about that. I love that song. She Like Me, but tell me about the EP.
So the EP was, we have a collection of songs. If you saw I think I may have showed you before, but we have a laptop folder. Like we have a online Google Drive folder of just all the song ideas of instrumentals I come up with, stuff Joseph writes to, all like that. And it's a huge ass folder.
Yeah. I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, we just kind of keep going. And so for this one, for our first EP, we wanted it to be very much a story. We wanted it very much to be these interconnecting songs, different but interconnecting, you know. And I don't know. I like it. Once again, we go back to once again. I like it. We liked it.
That's why we do it. That's why
we like it. We hope you like it. But if you don't, I don't know. I'm gonna buy you a Coke, make you feel better. I don't know. But we released that one, and then we're re-releasing it through Bubble Bath. And then in I forget when. We're going to be releasing a new single, one of the singles off the new album. The new album is going to be called Save the Wreck. And we're releasing that in March, I believe. I should have had all my dates ready.
Oh, it's all good. We can always implement that stuff.
Yeah.
What time?
John, don't be mad at me. So we're thinking about a New Year's release of that one, a release in the new year of that one. And that's going to be a full length. And that one's going to be a lot. It's very interconnecting, and it's going to have a couple of guest artists on there.
Sick.
So
now, you guys recorded the majority of it here, right? And then went to Austin to do the editing with Chris, or how did that work out? What was that process?
For the EP or for the album?
Yeah, for She Like Me.
For She Like Me, it was kind of all across the board. I am the primary writer of all of it, so
right. You wrote it all,
yeah,
right. And then Joseph wrote the lyrics and the melody that way, and then
So we have this very cool process where it's like, I'll write it, I'll send it to Joseph. Joseph has his own editing software, so then he'll write all these demo things and he'll chop up the song and be like, nah, I felt like the verse should have been here. I felt like the chorus should be here, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, and then he'll send it back to me, and that's fine. And then once again, I kind of go back to editing. And then after that, we kind of built up these songs. And then we had Chris Gatson. He's currently living in Austin. And he would come into town a few days before the recording session. And him and I just kind of sat around and we just rehearsed the songs like a band. And it was just me on guitar and him on drums, and we were just like, oh, yo, let's add this hit. Oh, it'd be cool if we did this. Phil needs to change here. I like what your drumming is doing. Let's expand upon that. And so we would go in, we would knock that out, and then from there, Chris would take the files back to Austin, and him and I would just kind of like go back and forth on the mixes and stuff like that. Joseph actually recorded the vocals. We recorded primarily, we tracked the bass and drums at Empty House Studios with Matt Tobias. And Joseph recorded the vocals somewhere else at Bias Studios, I believe. And after we're done with that, we all gave it to Chris, and we went back and forth to mixing. Then we sent it out to an old friend of ours, Mike C. We were him and I were in a group together called JDS for a while, and he did the mastering on it. So it was this whole like new age, everybody's just trading files back and forth here and there, going everywhere. Primarily the guitar and bass were done in my house.
Here in New Mexico,
Yeah, just right on my laptop.
Yep.
And it worked out just fine.
So tell me a little bit about the writing process when you're by yourself versus when you've got a collaborator that you're writing music with. I mean, do you ever write lyrics and stuff by yourself for your own songs?
No, I'm just not a lyricist.
Even melodies or anything like that?
Yeah, I'll write melodies, but I mean, I view them from instrumental wise.
I was about to say, so there are more melodies that you're thinking about, like playing the melody on the bass. You're not thinking about like writing a melody for a singer or something like that.
I honestly don't write a lot from the bass.
But I mean, sorry. So
I view it more like if I'm playing a melody.
yeah, like you're probably writing it out on the keyboard, but I mean, you're thinking about it for like a singer, right?
No,
Or not even just a melody.
Yeah, I'm just thinking a melody. I'm not even thinking words. I'm not thinking that.
Yeah.
For me. And if it ends up the bass is the melody, sure. If it's the guitar, if it's a synth, whatever it is.
If it's instrumental or if it's vocal, right.
Yeah, I don't think vocals at all. That's just not me.
Yeah.
But
have songs of yours gone from that, from being instrumental, being, I'm saying like you wrote a melody and then that melody eventually became like lyrics and a melody that someone sang?
yeah. I kind of write lyrical melodies, or I write like a very plain idea.
Yeah.
Kind of like a very generic of like, hey, this is kind of like where the movement, this is how I'm feeling it's going. And a lot of singers somehow attach to that.
Just take, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Joseph
doesn't really do that.
No, Joseph, no, he'll do it. Oh, he will take it verbatim, but then he'll flip it so bad that it's just like, I'm like, yeah, I didn't write anything. Apparently, I wrote that for you before you wrote it. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
And he just throws so many harmonies on it. It's just like, I don't know what to do.
I love that about Joseph's writing, man.
Yeah, he thinks I went all the way through. I don't know. But for my own personal writing, when I'm writing by myself, I don't have any. As soon as I have, there's probably some like big Buddhist meditation philosophy in this one. But if I try to write something, I hate it.
Yeah, sure.
If I just let it flow, then generally it's like, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. That's cool. Like without any expectations. Another thing I do is I try to make the crappiest thing possible. That's like one of my big go-tos. It's like, I'm like, I hate this chord progression. Everybody does this chord progression. I hate this drum beat. It's stupid. How do I make this cool? Like just polish a turd. And sometimes some of my favorite songs I've ever wrote have been like polishing a turd.
Yeah. Have you had songs in your arsenal that have taken many, many years to finish writing? Or are you more of like a get it done within a couple months, a year or two, or something like that? I mean, because you write, I know you write a lot of ideas, and you have freaking folders upon folders upon files of ideas that you can turn into stuff. But like, so I'm sure you still have ideas that are sitting there over years and stuff like that. But like, do you have songs that have come to life today that are songs that took many years to write?
One I could say is off the new Tape City album. There's a song called "Save the Wreck." That was like literally our name before. We had to change it. We were Save the Wreck, and we realized there was some band, some website, so we had to change it to Citizens of Tape City, which was kind of funny because that was my solo project name. And so
that was your solo project name from when? When did you start that?
Oh,
was that just like your solo project name of like the stuff that you make by yourself with all your instruments?
Yeah, like if I threw something up on SoundCloud, it was Citizens of Tape City.
That's tight.
And so then we were like, I'm like, yo, let's just use that.
Where'd you come up with that name?
Whew, wow, that's a story. Basically, we were working with don't call out no names on this one, okay? How about we
zip it, Claudio.
So
shut up.
I was working in this situation, this behavioral situation, and we were working with this kid. This kid was very, very violent, but would have this like flip side where they would just be like this nice, happy he kid. Anyways, long story short, we ended up being in this room where we're kind of like stuck with it. We had to watch this kid because the kid was so violent that if they left the room, they were going to attack anybody, but wouldn't attack us. Anyways, long story short, the social worker for the kid made this big old masking tape peace sign. And the kid like lost it on the social worker. Got them in the mouth, dude, like pop. Got him good. And like it was this big old thing. Had to rush the social worker out the room. Me and the other dude in the room are like freaking out. And this kid is just sitting there without like blinking an eye. Goes back to happy smiling and goes, "We're the citizens of Tape City and we're never leaving." I was like, "Oh, that is the creepiest thing on the planet."
Shit.
I was like, "Oh, I got a band name." Anybody else want to start a band? Because I got a name right now. That's so...
Wow. That is amazing.
And so...
Holy shit.
It went from that to like everybody like having their own interpretation. So Joseph was like, "Oh yeah, cassette tape. I get it." I'm like, "Oh, all right, whatever, dude."
Sure.
Sure, if that's what you want to call it, you know.
Yeah.
So everybody has their own interpretation at this point. That was just like the initial way that it was set up.
Wow.
Never forget that kid's face. I was like, "This is Tales from the Crypt Part 5. How did we get here?"
That's some scary shit, man. Wow.
And that kid's in your community now.
Hey, Billy. Sorry. Didn't mean to call out your name there, Billy. Oh, we're going to take a little bathroom break and we'll be right back. And we're back. So, tell me a little bit about, bro, Citizens of Tape City played a couple shows now. You were talking about the full album.
Yes.
Now, tell me about the full album. Is it going to include, obviously, the songs from the EP or not? None of those songs, totally different songs?
Totally different songs.
So tell me about that.
Our whole deal is that just kind of like considering, you know, kind of the name and all that fun stuff. We feel like it is a story. Like if you're ever familiar with like a band like Coheed and Cambria or like the
Oh yeah, guitar player's name is Claudio.
Of course you would remember that.
Yeah, I love that shit. Curly ass hair, dude.
Come on, man, don't sound like a 5-year-old here. Yeah, his name's Claudio too. So I mean, I'm really into like prog rock and tech metal and stuff like that. And one aspect that I kind of always wondered like doesn't happen a lot of other places is the idea of continuity between songs and kind of like telling a story and making an album. And of course, in our day and in this current day of like, you know, singles and YouTube and, you know, Spotify and streaming, that there's not a lot of albums. And I'm like, I still want to make an album. I still want to make an effort that is like a movie. And maybe the single, you can consider it the trailer, but like I still want to make an album. And so we kind of still stuck with that game plan. So these are still a collection of songs that we felt fit together.
In a storyline sense.
In a storyline of senses and just kind of thematically. Mm-hmm. It's not even the strongest storyline more than thematically they fit together and they have a natural progression to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was kind of like the whole inspiration for it. So yeah, it's a set of whole new songs. Because there were some songs that me and Joseph nearly broke out into tears because we're like, "Oh, we can't put that on the album." That's my favorite beat. Y'all know that's my favorite lyric of yours.
Why couldn't you put it on the album?
Because it just didn't fit. I won't say it didn't fit. It's just like we either had something there already in its place of like, hey, this takes the position of that. Yeah. The place of the, you know, the hype song or the kind of like, you know, left turn of a story.
Sure.
So it's like, oh, we can't throw that in there. Or it's like either being redundant or it just doesn't fit. And I didn't feel comfortable with that. And Joseph was like super supportive of that. So we would just be like, there's some like kind of, and then there's some just kind of unfinished ideas that we were just like, okay, well, we're going to finish this idea because this idea fits. Wherever we were thinking about going with this, it fits. So we had it. So that was kind of like the whole point of that album, of the album coming up, where we're still working some things. We're still waiting on some people to lay down some solos and stuff.
Yeah.
So
nice. So people will definitely keep an eye out for that, and I'll put links, of course, to Citizens of Tape City's website and your website, of course. But yeah, actually, we've got a project that we're going to be going into the studio to record pretty soon as well with Logan Nix, who actually just gave us a call. We're probably going to put a pause here in a second to give him a call back and reconnect with him. But he you and I had a trio a long time ago here in town that was a trio that did a lot for me, really kind of finding my balance, like tipping the balance beam back from playing music I ought to be, quote unquote, ought to be playing, as opposed to music that I wanted to be playing. And yeah, it's going to be a trip. And when that happens, we'll do a podcast with you, me and Logan, to talk about that process and the process of throwing ideas to the wall. You coming in with just like a guitar lick and showing me it, and then us going from there, or just literally just jamming for a half hour and finding something cool and sticking to that until eventually we hashed it out into something real, tangible, But yeah, man, I think getting a chance to write music with people does something that you couldn't do otherwise, man. And now that I'm doing art, I'm starting to do that with a lot of people that are my clients, become my clients, which is pretty sick because they like some of the artwork that I make. And then they, the first guy basically hit me up and was just like, would you be willing to make this idea that I have? How much would it cost? And, how long will it take? And to collaborate with someone like that by using my skill set and coming into an idea that they have, it very directly reflects the experience of writing with Joseph, where he and I come together and he's like, all right, I'm gonna lay down this idea. Like, you're in a home and, your girl just left you and, someone just stole your car and, you came home and your dog had run away. Like, what's your feeling? What's your emotion? Yeah. It's like painting that picture, and then what are you gonna do with it with your skill set?
Cue the country song.
Ding, 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 ding.
Let's do it in country.
Lips ain't working. Sorry, bro. That was not fucking country.
That was not country.
Insert country lick right now.
I think when you collaborate, I think that's just as important as working on your own. I think working on your own and working in a vacuum is really, really cool. And I mean, I do it. But even when I do it by myself, I write with somebody else in mind. When I've produced a couple of artists, or, where even, I've kind of directed you in a sense, I go, hey, write like something is there. Like a ghost is there. Like, we don't have a melody yet. So it's like, simplify that guitar playing. I'll simplify the bass line because whatever vocal's about to come in right there, you're crowding at space. I can already tell you.
Yep.
So I think that's a form of like collaborating too. And
I also think that's definitely your maturity as a writer, to understand the balance of all things. Like you were talking about earlier in the podcast about when you were initially making beats and when the snare would be too loud. It's like the whole balance ain't right. Yeah. And yeah, man. I've learned a lot from you and from Logan on how to solidify ideas and bring them to truth, man. Speaking of Logan, we're gonna take a little pause real quick and give him a call, check up on him, and we'll be right back with y'all again. Double pause. And we're back again. So, y'all, as things progress and as things move forward, we'll definitely be posting more about the projects that will include Logan Nixon and Artie and I. But moving forward, man, what if you had to paint the picture of where you'd like to see yourself in 10 years? What does that look like?
Just honestly, it's kind of never changed, but just like making music I like, producing, writing music I like. Maybe over the last 2-3 years, a lot of people have been coming up to me and trying to get me to produce albums and produce their album and help them write songs and stuff like that. So I might make it a big thing to make a turn towards producing. Try it out. I mean, I guess I have been doing it for a long while, but consciously go like, hey, yo, okay, yeah, I'm taking responsibility for
This is my role, right?
This is my role.
Right. I was having this conversation with Matt Brewer about the book Notes and Tones by the trumpet player Art Farmer. It's a badass book, basically of like conversations, but not from like interviewers to jazz musicians, but like friend to friend, you know?
Yeah.
So Art Farmer, you know, would talk with Miles, with Bird, with all these great musicians and talk to them from a sense of being their friend. And one of the questions that he'd asked that I've taken over from that and started, you know, asking a lot of the people that I have on the podcast. Yeah, that I've stolen from it, you know. Plagiarizer. Is the question, what does jazz mean? You know, and not necessarily like defining it for me, but like, what does it mean to you?
Jazz is the idea of improvisation. It is not just improvisation, but it's the idea of being in a conversation. And I think I can leave it at that, is that it's a conversation. So when people want to just say, well, if it's not Miles Davis, if it's not Kind of Blue, or if it's not Bird, it's not jazz. It's like, nah, I wouldn't view it that way, because then you have bands like Explosions in the Sky, Mogwai. You have these fusion groups where it is this prescribed song, but there's just so many elements to it that it's just kind of like they have to have a conversation with each other to make it work. It has to be symbiotic. They have to go like, yo, we have to take it to a new level tonight. Okay, cool. We're hitting the same notes in somewhat the same fashion, but you have to push it some way. And I believe that's a conversation, and that's jazz. Now, do I need to know what the fourth mode of the melodic minor scale is and how to adequately apply it to the chords? It's like, sure, that helps, but it's like that doesn't make you jazz. Yeah. Because there's a lot of situations in jazz where kind of, all right, we got out this road. Get in trouble again. Because I said something similar to this last time on the podcast, and I heard a couple comments, and so fuck it.
Oh, fuck it, throw caution to wind.
Yeah, it's like when you take it from like a very academic point of jazz, like, are you really playing jazz? When it's like, okay, we're gonna do this, or I'm gonna play this solo, and I'm gonna use this over this chord, or I'm gonna use this over this chord. It's like, is that actually having a conversation? When you've worked on your swing in a specific way, it's like, is that having a conversation? Because there's a lot of situations I've seen of people who are they really tote the name, I'm a jazz player, but it's like, oh, if you guys played a song and one of you was in Japan, one of you was in Cape Town, one of you was in Muskegon, Michigan, and the other one was in Mexico, and you guys recorded these independently and you put it together, you guys would sound just fine. So were you ever in a conversation, or were you just reciting what you learned? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It wasn't the symbiotic, like, hey, yo, were you filling off of each other? I've been in metal bands and, musical theater situations where it is a very, very prescribed musical situation, but we've had to lean on each other and kind of fill out where each other's going and have that conversation musically, that it's like, yeah, this is jazz. Like, oh, there's no other group on the planet that could play it like us, in the sense of not worse, not better. Like, nobody can play it like us. And it will never be played that way again, because it was a conversation. So that's what jazz is to me. Yeah. It's a conversation. Yeah. It's an open conversation, and knowing that you can go to different subjects if you needed to, but keep on the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
We're talking about music right now. Now, if we ended up going off into like astrology, we're both knowledgeable enough about it that it's like, okay, we can have a conversation about that and then somehow bring it back to music.
Yes.
That's jazz.
Don't test me, though.
I'm not.
Now, I wonder what your ideal situation would be producing. You know, a conversation I was having with John Maestas, as he is now also getting more work and doing that, wearing that hat of being the producer, not bringing his guitar to the gig, but just acting as the musical, overseer of the project to try and make it as solid as it can be, make the best arrangement, make the best of the situation. I mean, what is an ideal situation for you to work with? You know what I'm saying? Like a band, a singer that's solo, then you pick the musicians, like what is that?
I guess either one of those situations is interchangeable. And to me, if it's a band, it's a band. And that you have to work with what you got. And I believe that like minimalism and restricting yourself is the most powerful thing when creating. So it's like, oh, yo, you may be in a band and your bass player's whack. And you guys all look at me like, oh, yo, Art, could you do this bass line? Nah, I can't do this bass line. That's your man right there. How do you make this fit? Because in a lot of situations that I've been in, this band shall not be named. There was one member of the band who was a really good friend of mine who wasn't the greatest member of the band. Like, he wasn't a strong player. And everybody else in the band was like super tech. Like, I would write super prog tech lines, so would the other guitar player and stuff like that. And my other friend who was the guitar player, he really couldn't keep up. But he was very, very musical. So what would happen is we would have to dumb down these lines in a lot of ways. And we'd be kind of mad at first. But then we'd be like, oh, actually, it kind of sounds better this way. And then he would be like, oh, well, I can't play that. So either A, he'd be like, I'm going to come up with some textural thing, or he's going to figure out some other lead line. Or, there's just all these things where he acted as like kind of a buffer. That's what I used to call him. He was just like the buffer, And so we would end up writing these better songs because there was somebody in the band that we had to adhere to, but we realized that we couldn't do it without him. Because if we didn't have him there and we just were able to roam free,
it would be its own thing.
It would be this
totally different thing.
It'd be this totally different thing, and I don't think we would be happy with it.
Yeah.
So in a band situation, until it becomes detrimental, I think having somebody who kind of buffers the situation of like, hey, yo, let's bring this down a little bit.
But not someone that like weighs it down and slows it down.
Exactly. That's a different.
Totally different situations.
Yeah. So I think what I would like to produce, I would rather work with bands that I can see where they're going. Like what a lot of people don't get is with producers, it's just like, you pick a situation that you can help, that you can make better. Just because Rick Rubin is probably arguably one of the best rock and hip hop producers on the planet, there is no way that I would tell that guy to go produce like most bands on the planet. It's like, yo, he's not good for that.
He's good for what he's good for.
He's good for what he's good for, and he can see like, yo, he saw Red Hot Chili Peppers, he saw Slayer, he saw Run DMC, he saw these bands. Beastie Boys, and he saw these situations. He goes, I can make that better. And that's what a producer is supposed to do. They're supposed to do two things. Of I can make this situation better. I can make your songs better. I can help. Also be like, oh, hey, we can toe the line of like, what is the standard for the record label? That's exactly what a producer used to be in the old days of like, oh, hey, Motown, like, hey, yo, we do this. And it sounds like this, and we have this caliber. I'm keeping us all to that.
Yeah.
That's all he has to do. So I would love to work with artists that I feel like I can make better. And so I kind of messed up one day. On Facebook, I put up something going like hey, I want to produce something, like adamantly like stab at it. And these people like,
and a bunch of people message you.
Dude, it was like within 30 minutes, I had like,
hey bro.
I had like, I could easily say like 15. I can remember 15 messages like right off the back. And like, I promise you, people were sending me videos and like audio and like huge files. And I'm like, oh,
what did I sign up for?
And it wasn't the fact that like all of them were bad. Like none of them were bad actually. There was a couple that were really bad. But there were some that were like really, really good. I'm like, oh, okay, well, fuck. You sound great. And I mean, I don't know what to tell you past there. Like, go record this. Like,
Keep doing you, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. There's other ones where it's just like, I don't know what to do for you because that's like not in my realm. / I don't like it.
You're beyond my help.
It's not even beyond. I mean, yeah, for real though. Like, yeah, you're beyond my help. There's somebody out there who's going to be like,
help you.
Who's going to be like, oh, I see the gold in this.
Yeah, it's not your bag.
I'm just not the one for that.
Yeah.
And so people had like it was kind of like a cool exercise in the sense of people don't know what a producer does. Like, it's a very, very,
it's a huge mystery.
Well, it's
even for artists that hire and have had work with producers, they could probably have a hard time defining for you what a producer's role is.
Ambiguous.
Yeah.
Ambiguous. Because some of them were like singer who's like, oh, I have a melody. And I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do with that melody? Well, aren't you going to produce a whole thing around it? Well, I'm like, oh, I could. But that
would be taking on a whole lot more roles than just being a producer for that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm helping compose the song. I'm arranging it.
Yeah, it was again composing, arranging. I'm like, oh, you're asking for a lot more, and I'm like, but I see where you saw a producer in that, so I'm like, oh, okay, my bad, I didn't mean that.
Yeah, and
so then there's other people who are just like, oh, they have a full-fledged song, and I go, okay, what do you want me to do with this? Produce it. I'm like,
yeah,
you produced it.
It's already done. Yeah.
Like, yeah. What do you want me to do with this?
Yeah.
So
often I think as creators, we try and hone it to be the best that it can be. I mean, I do this, with you and with other friends as well. With John, when I send him, songs, or he'll do it with me or other. It's just a common thing for friends to get peer reviews, to get that extra set of ears being like, yo, you should do this or you should do that,
Yeah.
But to then, just look for those extra people where really you don't need it. It's just a matter of like, you've already done it. You've already done what you need to do. And like getting that extra person isn't going to help you. It's just about doing it and then turning the next page and doing it again and doing it better. And then turning the next page and doing it again a little better the next time. It's like, I remember I asked Larry Mitchell to be the producer for my album, and flat out he was just like, no, man, I just can't. Like, that's not, that's not his bag. That's out of his limits of what he can help me out with.
It's not even limits. It's just his scope.
And he could, yeah.
It's
his bag.
Scope.
It's his. It's what he works within, what he's comfortable within, and what his vibe is. So, all right, just to kind of round everything back in and to kind of, bring perspective into, you being an orchestrator or a producer, a mastermind, with Citizens Tape City being a project and stuff like that coming out. What is something you recommend for aspiring young musicians or just musicians in general that, have that mindset of wanting to create, but want to take that to the next level?
Be consistent. Number one, be unapologetic. Be an asshole. I mean, people try to walk around it and kind of skip around this whole thing. I'm just going to say it's like, be an asshole. Like, write stuff that you want to write. Write things you want to hear. And if it doesn't sound like something, if it doesn't sound like what you're hearing in your head, you keep striving till you hear it, until you go, yep, that's what it is. That's what I wanted. And then don't ask your family. Don't ask your friends. You keep writing stuff until you go, yo, I feel confident in this.
This is fire.
Yeah, I like this. And then, just then at a certain point, then you have to be like, okay, I gotta share this with the world. How does this
see the reviews from there, right?
Yeah, how does this match up to everything else? Fine. But when you're creating and you're in your zone and you have your laptop, your whatever you're recording into, be an asshole. By yourself. Write as much as you can by yourself. Another thing is I just feel like a lot of musicians, period, like they forget how to be music listeners. It's a lot of like instrumental musicians. So like, guitars and basses and drums and stuff.
Who are you talking about, bro?
So many. Anybody who plays a stringed instrument and can't realize that a DJ and turntables are just as like valuable as a guitar. I'm sorry, I said it. Anyways, I'll get in trouble. I'm okay. I'll get in trouble for that one. Turntables are an instrument. Sampling and producing beats. That's actual music too. Just because I took out some samples, it's the same thing. You learn a Jimi Hendrix lick or you sample a Jimi Hendrix lick. Guess what? It's the same thing. I'm sorry. I said it. Anyways, point being. Yeah, go ahead, message me. We have a whole conversation. I'm ready for you. But the point is, it's just like being a music listener and just like listening to different things and just going, yo, this is cool. Like I have a YouTube playlist that I post every month. And I tell my friends, I'm like, oh, yo, give me new music. And I add it to this YouTube playlist. It's at like 250 songs at this point. And I keep it on my phone. And I just hit shuffle just to find new music and be like, okay, new influences, new things. So it's like, crazy Latin American band that's like, I've never would have went down that road, Canadian jazz artist. And I'm like, what? Who's this? Like anything. Just make sure that you listen to as much music as you try to make, So those are two things. Be unapologetic, practice a lot. Listen to music. Actually listen to music. Yes, you tell me, name one Who album. Just be able to name a Who album. But make sure you got through all the essentials. James Brown, Led Zeppelins, all that. Because I be talking to musicians sometimes and they be like, oh, well, this band's the greatest. Oh, it sounds just like Led Zeppelin too. What? Like, I do not know who the Police. I have a couple of friends who didn't know who the Police were. I was like, how? We're the same age. We're in our mid-30s. How did you not live through the Police and Sting? And come on.
Yeah. All right, my man. So November 11th is when Citizens of Tape City She Like Me EP will be officially released through Bubble Bath Records.
Through Bubble Bath Records.
Worldwide.
Sunday. I just always wanted to say that.
Yo, but the 11th is a Sunday, right?
Is it?
It's November, right?
In that cold November. Oh, dang, it is a Sunday. Shit, it's Veterans Day.
That's an interesting day, man. But I'm excited,
bro.
Super
interesting day.
We will drop this maybe on that Monday, on the 12th, and we'll add in some of the songs from She Like Me.
Actually, maybe the 13th.
Maybe the 13th. Oh,
maybe the 13th, because like it doesn't like new music Tuesdays.
Yeah, then it would have been the 13th, right?
John, don't hate.
Whatever date it's gonna be, we're gonna put all of that information within
EP release
the information.
It is the 12th.
The 12th, the Monday. Nice.
Woo! Whatever. I mean,
man.
If it's the 11th, you're a day early. Don't worry about it. You'll get it though.
Well, I appreciate you being on the podcast, my man. It's awesome to catch up with you. We've got many more podcasts to be doing, but next time I'll look forward to having the conversation with you and Joseph to kind of pick y'all's brain before your album comes out next year. So.
Oh yeah. We'll be right back from NAMM at that point, the trade show.
Yeah, man, and we'll be getting into the studio with Logan around that time to record our ditty.
Oh yeah.
Be it in New Orleans or in LA.
So many plans, so many things.
Well, safe travels to you, my man. I know you're going to be making your way down into Texas for a little while. And safe travels through the new year. And we'll be talking to you soon, all right?
I appreciate you.
Yeah, bro. That was the episode. Thank you so much for listening. Now you can go purchase, download, stream, do whatever you want to do, but I encourage you to go check out She Like Me, which is available everywhere through BubbleBathRecords.com. The name of the band, one more time, is Citizens of Tape City. And this next song is one that I personally love called Designer Jeans.
I like the spiral in the seam. Girl, you looking fine, gon' let it seem. Tell me what designer made those jeans.
See you cheeky bastard, double-driven, causing hazards. If you wanna see me frantic, then keep on just doing what you do. Designer jeans.
I'm weakened. Mona Lisa's mystery may not be meant for me, but I'ma still try if I could see why.
I may have to close my eyes, but
you're more than I've seen in my